got to give y'all a funny to just continue part 3 of all of this. Argued with the raven. Had a full-blown conversation with him. But when I say, as I've been saying, that God is the God of details, God is the God of details. One of the things that God has consistently given me, sparrows and ravens, by the way, in 1 Kings 17, it tells the story of Elijah. He predicts the drought, and then he is sent away, and God appoints a raven to bring him meat and bread in the morning, meat and bread in the evening, and then he has the water of the brook. Within that story, there is so much that can be broken down. The places mean different things. He was sent to a place of refining. He was sent to a place of separation. Just the Jordan itself means descend, to flow down. And so I'm sitting there and I'm cooking. Maybe it was Saturday or Sunday. Can't remember if Nisi was with me, so it may have been Sunday. And I'm sitting there and I'm getting supper fixed and ready to go and whatever else. And oh my goodness. There's this raven that shows up on my tree. And as I'm fixing spaghetti. And so it may have been Saturday. The day doesn't matter. And he goes to squawking at me like he's having a conversation with me. Like he's trying to tell me something. And I had connected dots when I seen this big black bird. And I said, I don't want to hear you. I ain't got nothing to say to you unless you have something to tell me from Jesus. And he squawked a little bit and he'd move closer. And I would be sitting there cooking and everything else. And it was almost like he was asking me for food is really what it sounded like he was doing. I don't know what he was doing, but I'd say something to him and he'd kind of squawk back at me, and then he had moved somewhere else and we'd get a little bit closer at the same time. You know, like he was bouncing trees to get real close. He just sat there for the third tree he moved. He just sat there and watched me for a little bit. I was like, all right. Well, and then it flew off and I didn't think nothing about it. About a couple hours later, here he comes, just sitting on the tree, just watching me. And I was like, look, I done told you, I don't want you over here unless you got something to tell me from the Lord. Well, the next 2 days, I'll wake up to birds. Now, last year, God woke me up several mornings with the birds, and just to hear the worship of the birds last year. Well, this year, they weren't birds. They were not worshiping. They were squawking. They were fighting. This one was fighting with this one, and this one was talking to this one, and it was like 2 days of that. And I just would giggle because, you know, when you see them, you see the little, you know, the swallows or the little birds, the sparrows or whatever else. And it was just like this constant reminder of all of the scriptures that God had been giving me. With the raven, God had appointed me places and appointed me people to minister to me. But at the same time, God has appointed me places and people to minister to. And the little birds reminded me that, you know, the scripture that God gave me in Matthew, that not one sparrow falls without God knowing it. God knows all of the details. And one of my favorite parts of that, and I've said this before on one of my videos, is adding minutes to life is a small thing to God. Every detail of my life is nothing to God. It's just small. And so, another crazy animal story is we had a raccoon. The kids lovingly named it Bethel. Bethel likes bread. My old critter was smart. Didn't have my bread locked up the first night in the right tote. So he hauled off with all of our bread. And then got it all locked up and situated, and he still tried. Bless it, he still tried to find him something to munch on. He'd get into my clean dishes. I had Bethel, the raccoon, 2 squirrels, and a whole passel of birds that started coming around our campground. None of the other campgrounds could be messed with. But, yeah. I woke up to bang, 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 bang one night. And I was like, what in the world? And I heard it again. Bang, 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 bang. So I said, right? I said, Bethel's back. And he goes out there and he looks, and he couldn't see what Bethel was getting into. But we kept hearing. Come to find out, she had taken my little tote that had all my nuts in it, or whatever that thing was, and had figured out how to open this thing and get my nuts out of it. I got claw marks and I got everything else. I was like, all right. Then we have a squirrel. And I don't know what these 2 squirrels were doing, but my flower thing, that hadn't been touched the entire time we'd been out there. And this one decides to chew through my flower thing to dig in the flower. I don't know what it was digging for, but it was digging. So my animal stories are kind of funny. Well, I think it was Monday. I finally got to meet Faith that Fran had told me I needed to meet. She had had an accident at work and had had a concussion, so she hadn't been able to camp. Faith was a white witch. She was raised as a white witch. Growing up, white magic was supposed to be better than black magic. It wasn't the evil stuff. But her story now tells her that that's not true. Her lease had ran up. As her story goes, her lease had ran up, and she decides to take her kids, and they're going to camp, and they're going to figure out. They're going to reconnect, because that's kind of one of the things in Wiccan is to kind of ground back with nature, but not in the same way that we do in the healing that the Lord gave us the earth and stuff like that. It's a little bit different. And she said, I went to find myself, and I found Jesus instead. She testifies to the head wound being God placing her in exactly the place that she needed to be to draw her closer to Him. And so I was able to share very, very briefly, because she was kind of coming in and out of camp, and I was coming in and out of camp. But I exchanged numbers, and she says, hey, if God can change a witch to a believer, He can do anything. If I hadn't been there, if I hadn't been there on Tuesday, instead of getting, I didn't get the hotel, remember, because I was going to get it for 3 days, because we did not sleep Sunday night. We did not sleep Monday night. We did not sleep Tuesday night. It was so miserably hot. If I hadn't been there, I wouldn't have heard the testimony and been able to share with y'all what God is doing all around me. We go to the Science Museum, because I'm like, we've got to get out of this heat. It was bad. I mean, midnight, it was still 90 degrees outside. I didn't have a fan, so I didn't take a fan with me. That's a bad thing. Really bad thing. I mean, the mornings were nice, and I mean, the place is beautiful. Very crowded, very popular place. Very close to the city, but I mean, it was just a beautiful place. So Tuesday we go to the museum, and the kids got Grammy. She's like, do y'all have an air conditioner? She sends me a text. Do y'all have an air conditioner? Do y'all have a fan? How are y'all staying cool in this heat? Y'all aren't even supposed to be in there. And she sends me the heat advisory. How we're not even supposed to be outside because it's like extremely hot, and yada yada yada. And I'm like, no, we don't have an air conditioner. No, we don't have a fan. We're getting into the hotel tomorrow. She says, a nice chest full of drinks. And I said, well, we've got some. I said, I haven't gone to the store yet. She said, well, I'm sending you some money. And of course, then there was this whole big crazy thing trying to get that all situated. About the same time, I get somebody else that has sent me some money through Cash App, just a little small amount. It wasn't much, but it was the thought of get you some gas, get you something to drink, whatever you need, here it is. And it was those little thoughtful moments like that. And so we got the kids a bunch of drinks and ice and popsicles. I think I wound up getting the kids some popsicles so they could have some popsicles. Little moments like that. Well, I get the hotel booked, and this was another hard one for me. So in order to book online, you have to kind of fudge a little bit on the amount of people in there because it is a computer and it's got a system, so you have to do X, Y, and Z. And so I get to the hotel on Wednesday, and I go in at 2, and a lot of times, a lot of hotels will be like, it's okay, don't worry about it. Well, this woman, she'd already kind of rubbed me wrong. She was foreign. And so I already just kind of did not like her attitude, her demeanor, everything else. I walk in and I said, I know it's 2. I said, is there any way that we can check in an hour earlier? Because we didn't have nowhere to go. I had to check out of the campsite at 11. Mind you, checking out at the campsite, when I redid my reservation, I was actually, another God thing, I was able to get my 2 nights that I wasn't going to stay at the campground refunded to me. Because I'm not going to lie. When Monday hit, not only did I have this, then I realized, and lo and behold, the food situation, I should have read the fine print on the hotel thing, and I didn't. And so I kind of freaked for a minute, like, God, where is that $100 going to come from? And I was like, well, you're just going to have to make sure I get the refund back on these 2 nights. And lo and behold, he did, because God is in the details. Well, I get there, and she's like, it's going to cost you $35 if you do. And so I was like, I'll just go sit in the van and wait. So we sat in the van, and we waited. An hour later, I walk back in, and I ring the bell, and she walks out, and she pulls up her sleeve, and she looks at her clock like I would have even been 2 minutes early. I don't know what it was thinking. Well, and she's checking me in and everything else and confirming all the details. And again, she says, how many do you have with you? And I said, 3 and a baby. She says, well, you didn't put the baby on there. Well, no, usually you don't put a baby on there. But I didn't say that. I was trying to keep myself calm. Where the hotel was at, I was already, me and Raya both were on high alert. The atmosphere around the hotel was not good. And it was really pinging on my spirit, really big. And even Raya's. But I lied to her face. I bald-faced lied to her. I kind of hid one of the kids, so to speak, just to get in the hotel room, because it depends on where you go. Some don't care. Like my children, 2 of my smalls would equal 1 adult. So technically I only had 4 people in there, adult sizes. But most hotels don't care. This woman, I had just a feeling, had I said something, I would have lost my reservation. This was my thinking. I would have lost my reservation. I would have had nowhere to go with the kids, and we would have had to go home. But we get into the hotel room. Immediately, my hotel room smells like weed and cigars. It stunk so bad. And I was like, oh, Lord. And Raya's radar went off big time. So this is the first time he had been in a hotel since we stayed in Columbus in 2021. We had to spend a long time. So this was facing things. And so for him to have to face a hotel that was very similar to the one that we had stayed in, very, very shady. It was all God appointed. And so we get in the hotel, and Raya's like, I've got this. You keep the doors locked. I'm going to go down the van. And he was just steadily like that. But his overactive mind, on the steps, there was a piece of cable or something. He kept telling me it was a snake. It was moving. It was this. And so he was already on very high alert. And he finally just kind of, like, Wednesday was a bad day for him as is. Like, we had not had any trouble out of him. He had been doing really good. And Wednesday he was lashing. And I knew that I couldn't react to his emotions because he was exhausted and he was tired. And so we get to the hotel, and we're chilling out, and I refused to let the kids go swimming because it looked like it was fixing to storm anyhow. And I had to pray, just because I knew that God, and that's what I told the kids when Raya kept freaking out. I said, no. I said, the word says that he has angels taking charge of us. And so there is a sword. And angel with the flaming sword outside of that hotel room, and we are safe. And when I said that, there was just a peace that come over me. And we get up, and about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I get woke up in the Holy Spirit, and I begin to wrestle. And I was like, Lord, you know, if I tell the truth, then I may have to leave my hotel room, and then we have to come on early. And I didn't want to do that to Nisi. And I really wrestled with it, and I was really arguing with him. I was like, can we just slide it this one time? And he's like, no, you've got to go and face this stuff. And so I sat down with the kids, and I was like, hey, guys, you know, Mama's always telling y'all not to lie. And I read them some scriptures on how God feels about lying. And then I said, okay. I said, let's pack everything up, and we'll go talk to the lady. Well, the manager wasn't there. Maybe that was a God thing. But I did talk to a girl named Leah. And I told Leah, I said, look, this is the situation. I lied to y'all, and I'm sorry. I said, but I cannot allow the God I serve to be put down like that. I carry his name. And that's the one thing that bothered me the most, is because if I'm going to carry his name and I'm going to lie like the devil, that does not bring honor and glory to him. It doesn't glorify anything. And she just kind of looked at me, and she didn't understand what I was doing. And she said, well, look, this is what I'll do. She says, I'll make note in the computer that you added one to your room. She says, but you really didn't have to do that. Like, she was trying to tell me to kind of keep the fudge, so to speak, keep the lie. And I was like, you know, and I asked her about the manager. She said, oh, she's not going to be here for a couple of days. She wound up being there to let the pool guys in or something, but she was in and out, so I didn't get to talk to her. But once I kind of made note to my fallacy, and I explained to the kids, I was kind of at peace then. I could kind of relax a little bit better. Let the kids go swimming. Well, we get down there, and then there was a really weird situation with this guy and these kids. And he said he was displaced, and it was his grandkids, but my radars were not, the story didn't click right. I didn't like it. I was uncomfortable with the kids in the pool with him. It was just, something wasn't right. Like, something wasn't right about this entire place. And so I took the kids back upstairs, and we stayed in the room, and we took a nap. And like, I'm surrounded, this hotel is surrounded by a bunch of ruffian men that are work guys. Lo and behold, actually, one of the guys at the hotel wound up being on the interstate with us, going the same way, and we have seen him at 2 different places. Kind of freaked me out there too. But I mean, just like, all these hotel rooms were filled with a bunch of guys from out of town somewhere working. And I just kept the Lord with me, is what I had to do. I did get the kids to go swimming for a little bit, but when we put them back in the pool, there was this young couple, and I don't have to say anything. Music was playing, things were going on, so I took them out of the pool again and tried one more time yesterday to get them in the pool. Not yesterday, but Thursday, to get them in the pool. And I got in the pool with them at that time because none of the men were around. Like, I wasn't going to get in my swimsuit with any of those men around. I wasn't comfortable with it. And even though mine covers up, I'm not wearing my underwear outside in public. Just not going to. That's what bikinis and stuff look like to me. But anyhow, but finally I just couldn't. I wasn't comfortable with them swimming. So we got in, got them bathed up, got the van packed up, and we went to bed. And we slept really good. We got up, got Nisi from camp yesterday, and I had a little hiccup with the van. Like, I could tell the van was really struggling. But you know what? God got us. God got us back here. He's protected us. I don't know. I know without a shadow of a doubt that God had us at that hotel room. Why? I don't know. The clarity on all of that is not clear to me. But I know that God put us there in that place. He allowed us to choose that place. Maybe it was for Raya. Maybe simply is the fact that Raya could walk into a place that we've lived in before, very similar to where we lived in before. Or there is something, maybe our presence carrying his presence into that room, I don't know. I don't know. And God will reveal that in time, because he also says in 2 Timothy that God gives us the understanding, the revelation. I just read this because that was something that had stuck with me on a lot of things. In 2 Timothy, it says, in chapter 1 or chapter 2, it says, Lord will give you understanding in everything. And that is 2 Timothy 2:7. And so I believe that God will give me the understanding in that as well. So that's been our journey. God has definitely been in every single one of the details of this, the little things, the big things. And now, told you this one wasn't going to be short either. Now I get to go get dressed because I've got conference. I get to go greet people today. I get to go love on people today. But more importantly, I get to go love on Jesus. I have a date with my Jesus again today. And this may be a conference for young people, but this old woman right here had an encounter with Jesus that I wasn't expecting all week long. Had an encounter with Jesus last night at a phenomenal message. And I am looking forward to seeing people have encounters with Jesus today. And just understand the details. Oh, another detail. I forgot. Another detail that was really cool. When we walked the trails, I always saw leaves that looked like fire. And that's been one of my prayers. Set me on fire, Lord. Set me on fire. So, details. Details. God is in the details. I love y'all. Big, 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 big.